But I think she does still share the founder's view that what is needed is the construction of a new, more favorable global order. Basically not surprising. Any rising power wants to shape global structures, global order, to suit their own national interests. It's what Steve Tsang and Oliver Chung refer to as party-centric nationalism, which I think is an apt phrase. So while not rejecting the current global order in its entirety, not surprising as China has been a major beneficiary, the mission of the Chinese Communist Party is to restructure the global order to reflect China's core interests and priorities. And I think importantly, of course, to achieve that objective, Xi Jinping has tools, he has power, and he has influence at his disposal that previous generations of leaders could not have imagined. And they comprise both carrots and sticks. The carrots of investment, the BRI, trade, investment, and the sticks of threats over sovereignty claims, South China Seas, across the Taiwan Straits, and the rise of a more aggressive public diplomacy. So current party thinking, I think, comprises elements of the inherited Marxist tradition combined with the selective use of the traditional view of the global order. Xi Jinping frequently cites historical materialism to buttress his view that socialist China is on the rise while the West is in decline, and that would be inevitable. But at the same time, the vision of contemporary China in some ways, I think, resembles the traditional notion of Tianxia, with the nation at the center of a cultural sphere, but I think now most importantly at the center of an economic sphere, which radiates to draw others into its sphere of influence. Now, that sphere of radiation is much more extensive than in the days of empire. However, though, the CCP is not forcing others directly to adopt its system wholesale or pushing other nations to become subordinate states in the manner of the former Soviet Union. But that said, I think there is a sense within the Chinese elite that its economic and political model is one that enjoys legitimacy, deserves respect, and that others might be wise to follow. So Xi Jinping has been actively promoting Chinese-style modernization as a positive alternative to Western models. And of course, then we have the joint statement between Xi Jinping and Putin, which indicated a greater conviction that the world was on the cusp of a major global realignment. I think the failure to date, though, of the invasion of Ukraine and the West's response, and Trump's recent actions notwithstanding, seem to put that idea onto a back burner. But as I said, I think the party has made it clear it will exert global leadership in those areas where it sees America withdrawing, and on regulations and institutions will formulate frameworks for new global public goods. So I think the question then arises, and these are the final couple of points I want to make, is what kind of international order then? I think the answer depends on the challenge in the institution. So China is a strong defender of the UN Charter, but it does reject international scrutiny on rulings over the South China Sea. Similarly, it has sought to undermine the impact of the international human rights regime, an approach which is, of course, supported by a number of other authoritarian and not so authoritarian regimes. And I'll come back to that in a moment. So I think while there might not be a rallying behind China and Russia to build a new global order, with the exception of those such as Iran and North Korea, there's a wide support, I think, for a multipolar world where US and Western influences are moderated by other voices. And that's, I think, especially the case for many countries in the South, and perhaps has been strengthened by the approach of the Trump administration. The Russian invasion of Ukraine, I think, has brought that into sharp relief, as not all countries have rallied behind the United States' call for sanctions on Russia, India, South Africa being notable exceptions. I would say in many ways, the internationalism of China's founding fathers has been replaced by a laser focus on the pursuit of national interest.